It's the absolute pits when cats Euromark inside our home. And I know most people will try absolutely anything to get that to improve, but lots of advice out there has the opposite effect. So I'm going to take you through 5 things that people often advise to treat Euromarking that actually make the problem worse rather than better. So first is to use deterrents, so physical things that you put where they're Euromarking to try to put them off from going there. So if it's just a case of blocking them, so you might put down, I don't know, like a cardboard box or a pile of books or something there that's going to block where they're peeing, then the risk here is that they'll just do it somewhere else. So instead of it making it better, you will find that the problem is getting bigger because they're going to be doing it in new locations. And once they've peed there once, they're probably going to pee there again. So you're basically triggering them to go elsewhere. It can be done as part of a behavioural treatment plan. So if we're working on all the underlying reasons, then you can use a barrier to stop them getting to their old marking spots, but only with that other stuff in place. The risk of using other sorts of deterrents, so things that smell strong or things that are spiky or they don't like, so like using tinfoil that's noisy when they go there, or using little sticky boards with things that like spiky objects on them, or using something that smells strong like bulbous oil or vinegar or citrus peel, or any of these things that you can Google and find so many different suggestions as to what will help keep them away. I get the idea behind them in that the cat will be like, I don't like that, so I'm not going to go there. But what you're doing is introducing a stressor into your cat's environment. And what you'll probably find is that they're already stressed, and that's why they're Euromarking. So adding more stress into the environment is only, again, going to make things worse. So don't use deterrents. Definitely don't use anything that's going to scare them. And if you're using a deterrent that's just a barrier to them reaching the normal point that they Euromark, make sure you've got lots of behavioural stuff in place already so that you're addressing the underlying cause and not just trying to stick a great big plaster over the problem. Secondly, it's often advised to clean the area with heavy duty industrial cleaners. Just make sure you've properly got rid of the mark. And I get that, obviously, we don't want them returning to the same spots to top up the marks. However, if your cleaner includes bleach, then the ammonia in the bleach, there's ammonia in wee, it's going to attract the cats to go back to the area. So again, this is just going to make it worse because they're going to feel like they need to top up that mark, and you slapping some bleach on top of it is only going to drill that message home. What we can do instead is mix a biological washing powder with hot water and use that on the stain, because that will break down the enzymes in the cat wee and will remove any residual stain or smell, and that will stop them from going back there again out of habit or having to top up the mark. You can afterwards spray the area with surgical spirit, but just make sure that you test it first. Like, don't go spraying it all over your special surfaces. But this is the best way I know of getting rid of cat wee. If it's seeped into the surface, so if they've sprayed on something wooden, or you've noticed it's seeped into the skirting boards or under the flooring, then you might need to replace it altogether. I know that's easier said than done, but once that smell is there, it's very difficult for them to ignore. Next is punishing your cats. And I know this problem is so horrible. Out of all problems, it probably seems the one that feels the most deliberate, that feels the most personal, and feels the most unnecessary. Like, you want to say to them, like, why are you doing that? And it often happens in front of us. They just swan in, they've got such a confident posture, tails up in the air, they just brazenly spray against the surface and then move on with their life. And if you see that happening, it is so, so difficult not to jump up from your seat and stop them in the act. And I know that none of you would actually hurt them, but there is advice that's given of shooing them away or saying no, clapping your hands. All these things that don't seem too bad can still have a knock on your cat's behaviour. And there are people that will hurt them. And I know that's horrible to think about, but there are people that will smack them or pick them up and throw them out the way, or really shout and get cross at them. So I understand it's frustrating. But if we understand that actually, even if you do this, it's not going to make any difference, it's only going to make it worse. Again, it's coming from that place where if your cat's Euromarking inside, they feel like their territory is not a safe place. They feel like it needs additional marking than the normal lovely face rubbing you will see day to day. So they feel like there's a stressor there. They're stressed about something. We just have to figure out what it is. So if you're shouting at them, or if you're smacking them, hurting them, saying no, waving your finger, all that stuff, then you're adding an additional stressor in. And it's worse than before because you are their safe person. hopefully they have a good relationship with you already. So we're going to be ruining that good stuff and changing something really good into something that's not bad, because I'm not saying it's going to ruin your relationship altogether, but it does have that sort of that effect. So you might find that they become more anxious around you because you smacked me earlier, or like you're nice to me sometimes, but you're not always nice to me. Sometimes you're really horrible to me. So punishment is only ever going to make any single behavior problem in the world is only ever going to make things worse. So I know it's hard in the moment to stop yourself and be like, no, don't do that. But just look the other way, leave that to happen, and then let's look at the underlying motivation. What is it that's stressing them out? Why are they doing that? Because nothing you do in terms of punishing them or telling them off is going to make any difference whatsoever. It's only going to make it happen more so. Next is to shut them out of the room that they're spraying in. So normally this is done to help manage the problem, but sometimes we can feel like if they've weed on the bed, well then if they don't go in there, then they're not going to wee anywhere else. But what often happens is that once your cat's weed somewhere and you shut off that room, then they'll wee somewhere else. So then they're shut out of that room. And until they're shut out of every room in the territory, until they're shut in the kitchen with access to the outside or the utility room, because that's the place that's easiest to clean, that's not going to be so disruptive to our day in terms of cleaning it and finding it. So now we have cats that are shut in the kitchen, and generally the kitchen is the most vulnerable part of the territory, because normally there's a back door, there's a cat flap normally, and it can have glass doors, or like obviously everyone's environment is different, but normally the kitchen is the place where these things are. Like even stuff like noisy appliances and washing machines. I've had plenty of cats spray on the toaster and spray on the microwave because these things are noisy and they heat up and they smell funny. So now you have that you shut your cat away from the safe areas where they felt most comfortable, most relaxed, and they're popped in the most vulnerable part of their territory. So again, obviously the spraying is only going to get worse when you think of it that way. So they're now in the place where they feel most scared most of the time, and the spraying is just going to continue on and on and on. So it's hard. I get it's hard. And I don't want cats being on my bed. It sounds horrific. And I wouldn't have to take my bedding to get dry cleaned and feel like you can't get the smell out of your mattress. I get that's horrific, but I would try, if possible, to protect the stuff rather than shut them out of that room. So waterproof mattress covers or plastic sheeting where you need it if they're choosing a particular part of the carpet. If they're spraying against a vertical surface, then is there something you can place against it, like a little bit of plastic wrap or a litter tray turned up on its side, like a small one? Things that you can do to manage it locally rather than totally shutting them out, because by the time I come in and your cat spent the last year in the kitchen, then it's much more difficult to then reintroduce the rest of the home in a really safe way. So definitely, I know it's hard, but don't shrink their territory down. Don't shut off their favourite spots, because it won't be helpful overall. And lastly is the one everybody asks me, and that is to get another cat. It absolutely won't help. And I'm sorry, I wish when people ask me that question that it was a yes, a hard yes, get another cat. It will resolve your problem and you'll have another cat in your life and you can help a cat from a shelter or rescue. But it just won't help. I've never in my whole career experienced a situation where urine marking is improved by bringing another cat into the household. Normally, urine marking happens because there's a social stressor. So it can be environmental too, in that maybe you're having an extension done or there's changes to their territory, but often it's because they're worried about another cat. So if that's a cat outside the house, then their safe space is inside, and then we have to work on helping that cat feel like those cats out there aren't a bother. So the last thing we want to do is bring one of those cats in, or a strange cat or a new cat. We don't want to be adding a social stressor into the household. The same way as if you have two cats that don't get along and they're both Euro marking, or one is Euro marking, because there's that tension, because there's that stress of them fighting or having to share the territory when they're not happy to, then obviously adding a new cat into that is going to only make that a lot worse. So as tempting as it would be as an ideal solution, in many ways, it just doesn't work. And then you're having to unpick that later on, when now you've got a new cat to deal with. Your original cat is spraying worse than ever because there's an additional social pressure in the household, plus any additional like problems that might arise, like having to deal with introductions. Like, what if they don't get on? What if they're fighting? What if the new cat starts Euro marking or they're hurting each other? So the risk is high and the reward, like I say, I've never seen it. It's probably worked for some people somewhere in the world, but the chance is so small. I would never risk it, not for this situation anyway. So trying to explain what will be helpful on here is super difficult because it's so individual and there's no like one size fits all for every cat. So I'll take you through the way that I work when I'm trying to address this problem, but take this information and apply it to your individual cats in your individual environment and see if that gives you any clues as to how you can nail the problem and stop the urine marking. So I tend to look at it through a checklist of things. So first of all, we definitely need to make sure there's no medical reasons why they might be urine marking. Any potential um, discomfort, pain, illness, anything could lead to urine marking because they feel insecure, they feel crappy, they don't feel well. So definitely go and get that checked out first of all. Secondly, is I think about stress. So like, are there any stresses in their home? Because when cats are urine marking, then it's their way of saying that they don't feel like their territory is 100% safe. They need to up their marking game. So I tend to look at stress in like two little sections. So environmental. So what's happening in your home? Is there anything that stresses out your cat? I think. Is there anything that they're not comfortable with? Is there anything happening that they're worried about? So think about changes to the territory. So are you having any work done? Is there any redecorating? Have you got things going on next door? Is there any loud noises, any strong smells, anything that you think will disrupt their day? I would just give a little shout out here to getting rid of any scent diffusers, air fresheners, especially those ones that puff and they're plugged in at like cat nose height. They're horrible. Because you don't want your cat to be fighting to claim the territory fighting with an air freshener. They want it to smell like them, and you want it to smell like lavender. We don't want them to have to be fighting against that. So remove anything that's potentially smelly. Can you hear Bucky snoring? I'm sorry. Can you hear this? I'm sorry if you can hear that. What's he like? Hey. So there's the environmental stress, and that's inside your home. What changes have you had done? And then there's the social stress. So this is other cats that they live with and other cats outside. That's the two main social stresses. So have a think from your cat's point of view. Like, how are they acting? Is it that they're running away from other cats? Are there other cats approaching your house? Are they looking in? Are they scaring them? Are they going out and fighting? Or have you got that problem inside your house? Is there tension between your cats? Are they staring at each other? Are they worried about each other? Because if you're seeing any of these, that's where you need to focus your treatment. That's where we need to work on improving things. And the spraying should resolve itself once you've nailed that. So rather than thinking, how can I stop the spraying? We want to be like, how can I protect my cats from the scary ones outside? Or how can I help my cats get along? Or how can I how can I help them cope with stress? So I will create videos on all of these as we go, but this is where we need to focus our attention. I would also add into the social side that people and dogs are also potential stressors here. So if you have a dog of your own, then make sure that relationship's good. But if you have people that bring dogs to your home, then keep your cat out of the way. Because that just because they get on with your dog doesn't necessarily mean they'll get on with all dogs, even if that dog is cat friendly. So like my cats, Fig is here. They get on well with Bucky, my dog, because we did a slow introduction and they get on so well, and that's fine. But when my in-laws dog comes to visit, like they're fine, but I can see it's stressful. So my cats have to go and hang out in the bedroom while he's here, and they're closed in. They've got everything they need in there, which I hate doing, but it's definitely the lesser of two evils, and they don't want to spend any time around him. So just bear that in mind. And again, people that come in, make sure they're super cat friendly and they interact with your cat in the way that you know your cat likes. Because some people think that cats love them and they might come in and they might have a cat at home that is super snuggly and friendly and they can pick up and cuddle, and they try to do that to your cat and your cat's going to be like, no way. That sort of unwanted attention again can lead to stress, and that can lead to a bout of urine marking. So there's so much to cover. It's definitely more than one video's worth, but just remember, we're looking at things in your cat's life that are stressing them out, because that's where to focus the attention. So if there's one thing to take away from this video, it's that I'm really sorry, but there's no quick fixes. It's not an easy problem to resolve. It takes time, it takes empathy, it takes compassion, and seeing the world from their point of view. So if you can pinpoint what the problem is, that's where to focus your attention, and the spraying should improve by itself. So I will create more videos as we go to try and help you do that. I do have a video on helping your cats get along. I'll link to it at the end if you have that problem in your home. But do let me know your experiences. Do let me know if you're living with this problem and how horrible it is. Let me know what worked for you, and I will see you next time. Take care.